Willis. Hey, how about a big old? There we go. Beautiful. Yeah.
I'm not worthy.
No, he's earned every accolade that we can possibly throw at him. No tomatoes, please.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. But long and storied career, and it should be rather interesting to hear some of his quips and quotes. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Really, I don't think it's going to be painful at all. Really.
So much for setting a low bar. I asked you to set a low bar, and
there you go. So, how long do you think you're going to be doing this? You still have about 20...
You told me an hour.
No.
How long am I going to be doing this job?
Yes.
As long as it's available.
Oh, it's the best gig in town.
Yes.
Isn't it?
We all eventually, if you're lucky, you find something you were meant to do, and I don't know, maybe there's something I could be. I'm sure there's somebody that could do it better, but believe me, there's no heavy lifting, so that's for me.
Yeah, well, if there's somebody out there who could do it better, we haven't found him yet, and he's got us totally convinced, so you might as well stick with what you got, right?
As long as the Daytona Beach News Journal, newsjournalonline.com, by the way, as long as they'll have me, I think I'll have them. We have a Motor Mouths podcast, Goblin Kelly and I do. I want to make sure I get that out there. We put one of those up every Thursday called Daytona Motor Mouths. You can find it wherever you find those things.
Okay.
How about that?
That's very good. So that's great. You're going to have us on Friday. You have him on Thursday. What a way to ease into the weekend, right?
That's right.
Then watch races on TV and all that sort of thing. So now, are you originally from Daytona Beach?
I am a rare native, Halifax Hospital.
Wow,
Yep.
really? Okay. Yep. So you went through the Volusia County
before they started adding on to it so much.
Oh, you were in the old building.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how old it was. I might have been in the first new wing. I think.
Okay. All righty. Yeah. So you're a product of the Volusia County school system.
Port Orange Elementary, the old brick one on Dunlop.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. Amazing.
Campbell Middle, Spruce Creek High School. And the national champion UCF Knights for college.
Oh, yes. My wife is an alumnus, and she says that you guys are number one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Until kickoff next season. That could change immediately. That's it.
So how do you think Mr. Griffin's going to do?
With the Seahawks?
Yeah.
I think he'll be a good – they don't draft a guy, they don't draft a guy unless they expect him to produce. So I think Shaquem will produce in some form or fashion and hopefully overachieve.
Yeah.
Continue to overachieve.
Oh, yeah. He's quite a great story, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Good old UCF. So they were still teaching out of portable trailers back then, weren't they?
That's a good one. All right, you ready to talk racing? Get off my old age?
Oh, well. Hey, how did the deal with the News Journal come about? Was it just a matter of right place at the right time?
Yeah, I think so. I was only 19.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so I started there part-time. I worked there part-time through college for 4 years and then started they had a job waiting for me when I did the requisite, graduation walk, and I've been there ever since. So it's been 30-some-odd years, and seen it change quite a bit in the last 10 or 15 years, the whole newspaper business. Everybody said it was coming, and we kept kicking the can down the road. Internet? What's an internet?
Yeah,
I said, your world's going to change. And then all of a sudden, our world changed, and we said, why didn't you warn us?
Yeah, really. So, holy cow, we sent 3 planes. Anyway, so growing up in Daytona, quite a deal, wasn't it? A lot of fun, the beach.
Yeah.
Spring break.
Yes.
Yeah, you tried to blend in with the crazy
It's still
people.
quite a deal. I live down in New Smyrna now, though. It's a little calmer.
Oh,
yeah, it's a little nicer. That's where all the cool kids live, so we're down there. And, I grew up. I can remember I was telling somebody the other day about growing up in the home of the Daytona 500 NASCAR. I can remember in junior high school when it would rain and you couldn't go outside for PE. We would sit in the auditorium, and they would put on one of the things they would show some sort of sports on the big projector film screen. And one of the things they would do is show those old highlight films of Daytona 500s.
Yep.
And we used to sit in there on rainy days, and we'd watch the old replays of the 76 500, the 70 500, and we'd see that. And so you grow up around it, and you just there are people who grew up with me who don't necessarily follow auto racing, but they know about it because you grew up here. And so it's in the paper. It was constantly in the paper, constantly on TV.
Yep.
So you learn about it through, I guess, osmosis or something.
Sure.
Even if you're not seeking it, it seeks you when you live here.
Yep.
And so there are people who auto racing is way down their list of favorite sports to watch and pay attention to, but they still have a working knowledge of it because they grew up here and whatnot.
Well, we need to enlighten them, right?
Try to.
Yeah, well, you do a good job. Yeah. So now you cover other sports too, though, right?
Yep.
A little bit of everything.
I love golf. I love baseball. I love being around it for work purposes. We do college football, a little bit of pro football in the fall, and now with the Jags taking root like they have here last year, that we'll start paying a little more attention to them, and hopefully going up here and there for a game or two. And so I used to go to a lot of Florida Gator games, and then our parent company bought the Gainesville Sun, and so now we can use all of their material. So that, that's good news and bad news. Is bad news not going to as many really good college football games anymore, but the good news is I'm not driving home at 1 or 2 a.m. on Highway 40, looking for deer out of the peripheral vision. So.
And that's where they are, too.
Yep.
That's for sure. Now, you've been around for a while. You're very creative. We see a fella sitting out here with a Cold Tailpipe Society charter member T-shirt on. I think you might have had something to do with that, right?
That was Godwin's baby, and then he dragged me along, and I started helping him, and before you knew it, he tricked me into taking over the thing. It was our like what would you call it, a dinner club in the wintertime, and we'd have an after-dinner speaker.
Yep.
We did it about 3, 4, or 5 times over the winter, and we'd have preferably a race car driver, sometimes a crew chief, team owner, and they would be our guests. And we'd base it around the testing schedule in Daytona. Remember the testing schedule?
I certainly do.
Back when they used to test 2 or 3 times over the course of December and January, we could do it. And we had built-in guests. Those race car drivers, they'd come to town for a test, and God knows they'd rather come to dinner with us than, go out on the town and shoot pool or, hang out or go to the library, those type of things. So,
right. Yeah. Well, that was some of the best times we ever had. It was going to the Cold Tailpipe Society. I joined for several years. It was up in the Bill France room.
Right.
The food was fantastic. Made you feel really special.
Yep.
And it was a lot easier getting the drivers to come to the Bill France room, wasn't it?
Yes. A couple of times you got in a pinch and you're looking for a guest and you were going down the list going, ooh, this guy's he's turning me down, this guy's turning us down. And then and once or twice I called Jim Hunter. Called Jim Hunter and said, Jim, anything you can do? And he said, give me about 20 minutes, I'll call you back. And he'd call me back and say, he'll be there Monday at 6. So.
Yeah, some of them were rather colorful, as I recall.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah. When I had to take over the MC duties, I had I have a policy of I have that 2 to 4 drink window. I have to have 2 in order to get up on a microphone.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm not standing today, so I can sit. And,
you're doing good today, though. Yeah.
And I had 2 last night. The residual is hanging over.
I got you. Okay.
I had to have 2 to have the nerve to get up in front of the microphone, but if I went over 3, if I got to 4, I shouldn't be in front of the microphone. So I used to have to kind of finesse that a little bit.
Now, there were a couple nights
where I had 4, yes.
I think you might have had 5, actually.
Yeah.
Possibly.
We'll just let that go. I hate the statute of limitations.
Yeah. But, you don't only write about sports, though. You recently won a very prestigious award for one of your stories. Can you care to talk about that?
James Church, I think his name was.
That's right, James Church.
Yeah, right down here at the jetty. He got struck by lightning about 14 months ago. It was in January of 17. It was just a great story of his that he got struck by lightning. He was out there before dawn, and it was drizzling rain, and it was in January. And you don't get a lot of lightning strikes in January, pre-dawn like that. And he got struck by lightning, and his story of how he survived it was remarkable. And so it was just one of them things you fall onto, and you got a willing participant to tell you the amazing story of how he, crawled to his phone and had lost 2 fingers, and he had to open the phone with the other. He couldn't feel that hand, and he was dragging his leg, and it was just an amazing recovery story. And
incredible.
And he's fine and dandy now for the most part,
and
except for he can't order 5 beers with that hand. That's about.
Yeah. What was that award? Sigma Chi, something like
Delta,
that?
Sigma, something.
Yeah.
I'm not. It's all Greek to me.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Well, I thought it was very prestigious.
It was a national thing, which is rare for us, and certainly rare for me. Because, but yeah. So anyway, that and $2 will get you a draft beer. I think out here at the bar at happy hour.
Yeah. Yeah, very good.
I think there's a plaque. I do think there's a plaque, which I'll turn into a belt buckle, I think.
Oh, well, wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, a belt
I
buckle.
want to have a belt buckle like Richard Petty.
Yeah, there you go. That'll work on. Well, we're going to break off for just a second to give our sponsor a couple of minutes of love, and we'll be right back with Ken Willis. Hey.
The caution flag is out. Time for a break. We'll be right back with the Legends of Racing radio show. Welcome to Homewood Suites by Hilton in Daytona Beach. You're right in the middle of all the action. Daytona International Speedway, the airport, One Daytona, Florida's newest entertainment and retail destination, and of course, the world's most famous beach. You'll love our newly remodeled 1- and 2-bedroom suites, along with our popular King Studios. You won't need your full kitchen, as Homewood Suites Daytona serves up complimentary breakfast and evening social. It's like home away from home. Go to HomewoodDaytona.com for Homewood Suites by Hilton in Daytona Beach. We're back from where it all began, racing's original North Turn Beach Bar and Grill. The Legends of Racing radio show continues with your host, Buz McKim.
All right, good to be back here with Ken Willis, the fabled scribe.
Take it.
How's that? Does that sound good?
I'm not sure what it means, but I'll take it.
Okay, you can put on a business card.
Yeah,
right?
Rhymes with stable. That's about as close as I'll be to stable.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so do you know about the other Ken Willis, the other famous Ken Willis?
He was a place kicker, right?
Bingo, that's right.
University of Kentucky. I think he had got 1 year in the NFL, I believe.
Yeah,
Yep.
and they bounced him around a little bit.
And there's a Ken Willis Construction in Colorado.
Really?
Yeah, I was trying to, playing around with website names and everything, and I found this guy. And there was another one that was running for mayor somewhere, but some sort of scandal, I think, did it.
Okay. You know, the NFL, Ken Willis, is from Owensboro, Kentucky.
Oh,
a little town that produced so many race drivers, we wonder what's in the water out there.
Yeah.
I
don't know. Have you ever been there? Never been?
No.
Okay.
Sounds like an interesting place.
Send me
to
a
go.
postcard if you go.
I certainly will. Absolutely. You betcha. Now, where did your sense of humor come from? Was that something you had to buy out of a book, or did you did you inherit it? That quick wit.
You need something. It's all a matter of Darwinism. You got to have something to get you. Some fish have big eyes to help them hunt their food, and
right.
some animals have claws. A sense of humor will sometimes get you out of a pickle.
A pickle.
So yes. I found myself in a lot of pickles.
Pickles. In fact,
you can always baffle them with BS or charm them with a quick one-liner.
Exactly. In fact,
Dave Lang is he came from the same school.
Yes. Yeah, you kept the ball in the air for quite a long time there, Dave. Yeah, exactly. It's amazing. Well, everyone loves you. Who's the most quotable person that you've ever interviewed?
Well, since we're on a racing show,
Yes,
I will find one of those guys. And, wow, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
It was not Casey Kane.
No.
I tell you, I always liked the guys who were kind of off Broadway. So I always liked Brett Bodine was always fun to talk to. Guys like way off Broadway, Norm Benning.
Oh boy,
he's always fun to talk to, and of course the all-timer Delma Cowart.
Yes, Delma. Yeah, great piano
And there
player.
was a hog farmer that used to come down here and race part-time every now and then. Phil Barkdahl. Yep, right. He would come down. He was great to talk to. It was always those off Broadway dudes.
Yeah,
these days, the second generation Wood brothers, Ed and Lenny, or Lynn and Eddie.
Yeah,
they're fun. They're good. I enjoy talking to them. You're always going to get something good.
Yeah, Phil Barkdahl was an auctioneer.
That's right.
Yeah, he sure was. Exactly.
Him and Leroy Van Dyke.
Oh, that's right. I remember that. Wow, that goes back a ways. Holy
it's one of the great
cow.
songs. One of the greatest songs ever. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, but there have been some interesting folks in the past. Let me tell you a real quick story about Mikey Waltrip. Now, you probably have interviewed Mikey a few times, right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, he was in an interview, early morning talk show in Atlanta when he was a rookie with the Cup Series, and he was being sponsored by Hawaiian Punch. So he wanted to plug his sponsor. And the host said, well, you get a famous race driver on the phone. I'll do a little interview with him, and then I'll let you plug your sponsor for the rest of the show. And he said, well, that's great. So he calls Daryl, wakes him up because it's an hour earlier in Tennessee. He says, brother, I need a real big favor. He said, what can I do for you? He said, do you have Bill Elliott's phone number? Ta-da! That's classic Mikey.
My favorite Mikey story was they were in the pre-race drivers meeting at either Daytona or Talladega, and Dennis Hoots or Mike Helton, one, was explaining to the drivers about how the previous plate race, they had one of the big ones, and said, they were talking about bump drafting and how they should behave a little better so they don't repeat that performance.
Right.
And said, we were in the booth upstairs watching you guys last plate race a couple of months ago, whenever. And the way you guys were driving and the way you were bumping through the corners and doing this and that, we sat up there for 2 or 3 laps saying, we know you're going to wreck. It's just a matter of time. We know you're going to wreck. We could see it. We're sitting up there, and we called it. We said, they're going to wreck. And sure enough, you did. And apparently Mikey's out there with his hand up. And he still got his hand up, and Hoots, I guess it was, said, what? It wasn't time for questions. But he said, what is it, Mikey? He said, would you do me a favor? If you see that I'm going to wreck, would you let me know? I always love that story. I always hoped it was true because it's too good not to be true.
Yeah, absolutely. Favorite person? Oh, well, other than me, of course.
My favorite person? That's you mean like as a
favorite
like
person in sports?
Somebody you look up to.
I know you love your mother and all that sort of thing. But,
you don't know that.
No, I'm assuming.
I do.
Yeah.
My favorite two. Going back to childhood and beyond, my all-time favorite were Jack Nicklaus, George Brett, baseball.
Right, Mr. Pine Tar.
Yeah, Larry Bird.
Right.
Larry Zonka was my favorite football player. He lives half the year down here in the Oak Hill area. Right below New Smyrna Beach.
Yep.
Got a little older. Mercury Morris was the other running back on that Dolphin team. Loved him, and Paul Warfield. Loved those guys.
Yeah, Larry.
Yep. So I don't know. I didn't name you one, but name you a few. Nicholas was always my guy, though. I always loved Jack, which means I pull against Tiger because I don't want Tiger to get to 18 majors. So. And we were talking earlier. It's as much fun to pull against somebody sometimes as it is to pull for.
Oh, absolutely.
Somebody. You see that in college football. And that's one of the issues, I think, in NASCAR today is you don't have enough clear-cut villains. You don't have another you can't make it.
Yeah.
You don't have a guy where half the grandstand hates him, half the grandstand loves him.
Yeah.
And in all the glowing talk when people are reminiscing about Dale Earnhardt, they sometimes overlook the fact that half of the grandstand hated him.
That's right.
Yes.
That's exactly
he was
right.
so polarizing.
Yeah.
You've got a guy like Kyle Busch. Half of the grandstand might not like him. But the problem is with Kyle Busch, you don't have the other half loving him. You got a fraction, you got a few here and there, but it's mostly the kids with their M&M shirts on are the ones that love him. So, But anyway.
Yeah, you always have to have the bad guy in the black hat to make it interesting.
And college football, same way. If you're a fan of if you are a fan of Alabama, you have as much fun pulling for Auburn to lose as you do pulling for Alabama to win.
Oh, absolutely.
Florida State, same thing. And then Red Sox, Yankees. You love one of them, you hate the other one equally.
Yeah.
And the only thing that comes close to to being as good as your team winning is that other team losing.
That's right.
Yeah. And I think that in auto racing right now, I think is desperately in need of a black hat, white hat guy.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what NASCAR could use is a John Force kind of person.
Yeah. Just bombastic personality that's bigger than.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But again, you can't force it to happen, so to speak. Yeah.
John Force was on a radio show that we did for Sirius a number of years ago, and he was in there talking about his new die-cast. We were sponsored by a die-cast company, and they were talking about a new car that they were releasing for Tony Stewart. So old John Force, in his inimitable way, he said, you folks really need to get out there and buy this Tony Stewart die-cast because one of these days – he's going to be off his medication. He's going to punch somebody out. He's going to go to jail, and the die-cast is going to be worth a fortune. So get out there and buy this thing.
I tell you what, I got a couple of O.J. Simpson football cards at home that are worth money. So.
All right.
Yeah. I don't think Tony's capable of doing that.
Yeah, I got a set of O.J. Ginsu knives.
Autographed.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You betcha. Hey, what do you think about some of the stuff that's gone on the last week or so? You've got Herschel McGriff. What would you think about old Herschel?
Well, I hadn't heard his name in a long time, and then I'm scanning the internet, and I see that Herschel McGriff's going to race in Tucson in a K&M West race a few weeks ago, and I thought, holy cow! I said, he might be 80 by now. And then I opened it, and I said, my God, he's 90.
That's right.
And 90, usually they're not driving at 90, and if they are, they're right in front of me.
Yeah, that's
usually,
right.
Right in front of me,
yeah.
and on a 2-lane road.
Yeah.
But then I saw, some updated current photos of him, and he looks amazing. I mean, he looks mid-60s, And then he ran the race. He finished 94 out of 100 laps. And then the next day I find this video. Have you seen the video of him playing the national anthem?
Yes, incredible.
Who knew? First of all, who plays a slide trombone?
Yeah,
mean, once you get out of the high school band, who plays slide trombone?
Right.
Usually have to find a Dixieland jazz band somewhere.
Yeah.
So he not only is a slide trombone enthusiast, but he played the national anthem on it prior to that K&M race.
Absolutely.
And to have the wind to do that at any age, amazing at 90 to be able to do that. Then he got in the car and turned 94 out of 100 laps. That's one of the greatest feats I've in racing this year.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
Well, you figure he won the first Mexican road race in 1950.
And ran the first Southern 500.
That's right. Then he took that Olds and he drove it from Portland, Oregon, all the way to Darlington, ran the whole Southern 500, drove it back to Portland. And this guy he's a Spartan. He's unbelievable. Now, one thing I heard is that they hooked up a deal on his car out of Tucson. They had the left blinker light on. Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah, and a pom-pom on the antenna so he can find it on the grid. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. All right,
you'll be there very soon, by the way.
Right down the street from that. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Now, another thing, dumb kid tricks. All right, this kid, Spencer Gallagher, he goes out and he wins the biggest race, the first race of his career, but he wins an Xfinity race at Talladega and then fails the drug test. What do you think about that?
Well, I would like to know the timing of it all. I mean, your first impression is they had a party that night.
Yeah, right.
But, I guess we'll never know when whatever was in his system, when it got in his system.
Yeah.
Did it get in his system after the race? Or, by God, did it get in the system before the race? Maybe that's why he won,
Yeah,
so I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, so, and we always like to point out that he won a plate race.
Yeah, yes.
And a lot of people have won plate races. And when he comes back, it'll help his career if he can win somewhere other than a plate track. As Trevor Bain was saying the other day.
Yeah, Trevor. Yep. Be interesting with Kenseth coming back.
As Ricky Stenhouse was saying.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sure, yeah. But, talk about drivers that are enhanced. Back in the day, in the old modified days, Buddy Schumann used to say, Uncle Henry Ford gets me down the straightaways, but it's Lord Calvert that gets me through the turns.
That's right, I remember that. Yeah, that's one of the – I'd forgotten that one, but that was a good one, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they frown on that today, I think.
Kind of, sort of, yeah. Just
and a brown paper bag through the window at a pit stop.
That's right.
Probably wouldn't last very long.
Yeah, I certainly don't think so. Hey, did you ever have the desire to race?
No.
Never did. Huh?
No. Go-karts,
Okay.
Down at the arcade or whatever.
Yeah.
I always thought I was pretty good at that, but everybody thinks they're pretty good at that.
Yeah. What about the Richard Petty driving experience? You ever try that?
No, they did the deal with the passenger card, the passenger ride-along, where you get out and you ride along with a guy. Well, they did a deal, and I don't know if they do it now as part of the package or not. They had 6 or 8 stock cars out there, and they had these local Central Florida short track guys driving them. And they had them equipped with a passenger seat, and Godwin and I and one other person from the paper and a few other media people went out, and they put us with fire suits, helmets, strapped us in, the whole shebang,
Right.
And went out there and did the ride-along, but in traffic, with 5 or 6 other cars.
Oh, boy.
And it was, I think they said we were doing about 160. So you're going over through the banking, and there's a car. We were running side by side a lot, single file, then side by side, and the drivers would radio back and forth with each other and plan all this out what they were doing. And when you're in the passenger seat and there's a car right outside your window going through the banking, and you're doing like 160, I mean you stupidly put your trust in the guy who drives at Bithlow every Saturday night who's next to you, and New Smyrna on Saturday and Bithlow on Friday. And he drives on half-mile tracks, and we're out there at 2.5. So you just kind of say, all right, it's kind of like being in the airplane. If something's going to go wrong, ain't nothing I can do about it. And you feel like you can reach out and touch that car out there to your right. You do feel the sense of you do get a sense of the speed at that point.
Yep.
But like as Buddy Baker always said, you don't have a sense of speed when you're out there doing 190 or 200 because everybody else is doing it around you.
Yep.
He said, but when you're going backwards, when something goes wrong and you're going backwards, then you feel every mile per hour.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, it takes a special kind of person to do that sort of thing. I know Frank Mundy, the great driver from generations back, he said that a race driver has to be too lazy to work. He has to be too chicken to steal, and he has to be braver than Dick Tracy. So that's pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you never want to get in there, right? You know,
Nope.
Now, have you lost any hearing from being around the track?
Come again?
Oh, okay.
That was way too easy. But I've lost it from somewhere because not a lot. I'm guessing, just judging from other people around me and where they like the TV and where I like the TV volume-wise, I'm thinking I'm probably maybe 10 to 20% off of where I was at my hearing peak.
I see.
If we have a hearing peak.
Right. Yeah, right.
So I'm still okay.
Okay. Yeah, my wife says that I've got a problem, but I can't tell.
I mean, I've been blasted out there before where you walk past a car at the wrong time when they're cranking it and all that, but I know if I'm going to be around it for any length of time, I'm smart enough to put in the earplug.
Absolutely.
But I also notice that there's a hell of a lot of guys out there, older guys walking through that garage that never knew from earplugs. And you have to practically do sign language with them. And I have a 13-year-old yellow lab that's like that now, by the way. Yes. Yeah. She never raced, however.
Oh, she didn't?
She was never around the track. I think it's just, 13. That's a lot in dog years.
Yes, it is. That's for sure. So now, did you ever come into the sport in time to meet Bill France Sr.?
I was not working. I was in his company once with a group of people, but no, I never met him. I just saw him speaking one time. Yeah. But he was out of day-to-day operation and all that when I started spending a lot of time out there. He was still out there, but I was just never around him. Mm-hmm. He was in a suite.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, but then I'm sure you've come head-to-head with Bill Jr. a time or two.
Oh, God, yeah.
He could be a little intimidating, don't you think?
No, not to me. The people who worked for him, yeah. To me, I never. No, because I knew a lot of older guys that had known him since high school, and so I knew his deal. So I knew too much about him and knew that he was not a big tough guy. Yeah, but he was in a situation where he could be a tough guy.
Yeah,
and so so I didn't work for him, so it never bothered me.
Yeah, to the folks that worked for him, he played that role pretty good.
Yeah,
that's for sure. He definitely had all the cards. We're going to take a break for a minute.
I'll finish.
I'm sorry about that.
I'll do you a Bill
I didn't mean
Jr.
to
story.
step on you. Okay. All right, here we go. Next commercial.
The caution flag is out. Time for a break. We'll be right back with the Legends of Racing radio show. Racing's original North Turn is our broadcast headquarters. If you're looking for a good drink, great entertainment, and the best in food, they're right on the beach at Racing's original North Turn. Rhonda and Walt invite you to come on down to dinner tonight. Here are a couple of testimonials. These are actual testimonials from people who have enjoyed the North Turn. Been there many times, always great food and drinks, great location on the beach. And another, what a great experience. It's my new favorite restaurant in the Daytona Beach area, Racing's Original North Turn on South Atlantic Avenue. That's A1A in Ponce Inlet, about 3.2 miles south of the Dunlawton Bridge and A1A intersection. It's Racing's Original North Turn, a restaurant, museum, bar, gift shop, live music. That's Racing's North Turn. Racing's North Turn has been voted by you top 10 beach bar 7 years in a row. Next year, they're going for top 5. We're back from where it all began. Racing's original North Turn Beach Bar and Grill. The Legends of Racing radio show continues with your host, Buz McKim.
Well, thank you, everybody. And yes, we are at Racing's North Turn. And looking out upon the deck here, out on the sand and the surf and the birds flying around and the sun's out, it doesn't get any better than this. I hope there's some folks listening to us that are in the snow or the cold or the rain, because we're thinking about you. We feel bad for you.
It's supposed to hit 90 today,
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Today. Okay. Well, we're made for that, though.
90 sounds cool compared to up here.
Yeah, it's a little tough. At least we don't have lights, right? But, the Racing North Turn restaurant is right here at the North Turn of the old beach course. They raced here from 1948 to 1958 when the Speedway was built. And it's almost a museum, actually. A tremendous amount of artifacts and photos. It covers the whole history of the sport when they raced here. And several of the dishes are named after racing folks. Ray Fox, it's a shrimp salad sandwich. Russ Trulove, prime rib sandwich. We have the Mad Marion fish melt. We'll tell you about Mad Marion. Okay, we have someone who's eating the Mad Marion. It's pretty good, right? Oh, very good. Okay, super duper. And the Marvin Patch Chipotle wrap, which is funny because Marvin didn't like anything spicy or hot. He was a plain kind of guy. And the Vicky Wood cheesesteak. Vicky Wood is the fastest person that ever raced on the beach during the measured mile, nearly 159 miles an hour. She just turned 99 years old. So the fastest speed that was set on the beach was by a girl. How about that? What do you think about them? What do you think about girl race car drivers?
I'm for them. I am all for them. Do you think I would say anything else?
Yeah, we do have a few ladies here.
Yeah. The more the merrier.
Darn right. Yeah. Well, what do you think about Bubba? What kind of impact do you think he's going to make on the sport, Bubba Wallace?
Well, he could make a good one. He's full of personality, and but what it's similar to Danica. You got to get up front. You got to run up front for a while, and you hopefully win a race or two and be able to. Now, I mean, Danica wasn't there because she was full of personality. I mean, no offense, but I mean, she was there for different reasons. But I mean, she's a different personality than Bubba.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she was more intense and hard edged and competitive. Where Bubba's this new generation of fun loving. Which is good. You got him, and Ryan Blaney fits into that too. Yeah. We went through a stretch there, the Casey Kane era, I would call it, where it's not to pick on Casey, but why not? Where it seemed like all the young drivers that came up were, they weren't, what you'd call full of life. There was no marching band following them around.
No.
So,
No.
But now we've got some guys that are. Have a lot of personality and seem to be part of this new generation that likes to have fun and whatnot. So, and Bubba's right there with them, and hopefully, they need something like that to happen. But you can't make it happen. You have to hope that it happens.
That's right. And with the new wave of youth that we have on board, one of the problems there is that they haven't been racing long enough to get a fan base. Normally, you would have a driver who had raced maybe 10, 12 years. By the time he got to the Cup Series, he brought fans with him. He had a great crew that cheered him on. Well, these kids, I mean, I've got socks older than many of them, and they haven't had a chance to build a fan base. So they have tremendous talent. And they're going to be in the sport a long time, but at this point, you have to kind of develop people to realize who they are and who to cheer for them. So I think that's one of the issues that NASCAR has facing it right now.
You get a kid like Chase Elliott who has a built-in fan base because of his dad.
That's true.
But he's run well, but again, he has not won, and he's kind of a laid-back, dry. He's almost he's almost more like a Terry Labonte than Bill Elliott.
Oh, yeah.
He's calm, doesn't say a whole lot. And so even if he was winning, I'm not sure what that would do as far as drawing an audience and all that. But it would do nothing but increase his fan base because, I mean, if Bubba started winning races, Ryan Blaney started winning races, Clint Boyer wins some more races, that's different because those guys are full of life and a lot of fun. But Chase is a little more businesslike and a little calm and cool, and Well, so I don't know.
Maybe if he gets a couple of wins under his belt, he'll the personality will merge. I know he's got a lot on his mind right now.
I do think that if Danica had been able to win and run up front a lot, that would have been a big help to the folks who sell tickets. Over the years, I think. Yeah.
Well, it's funny talking about Terry Labonte. A couple of years ago, when I was with the NASCAR Hall of Fame, Terry was one of our new inductees. So we went up to his place, up to his shop, and we were gathering items for his display case. And I don't know how the subject turned to Caitlyn Jenner, but we were talking to Terry's wife, Kim, and she said, "Oh, you want to hear a cute story?" Yeah, what's that? She said, "Well, the other night we're watching TV, and there was, they're talking about Caitlyn Jenner, and Terry says, Caitlyn Jenner, gee whiz, if she wasn't Bruce Jenner's daughter, nobody would be talking about her." And Terry's daughter says, "Dad, that's Bruce Jenner." He says, "Oh, my God."
Really? Was that in the dark? Yeah.
But he and Bruce used to race together in the sports cars.
Yeah, and Scott Pruitt raced quite a bit with Bruce Jenner.
That's right.
Today. Yeah, I've got their race-by-race records somewhere in my laptop filed away. I just never have broken it out. Tucked away for a rainy day.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, he wasn't a bad race driver, old Bruce.
Him and Scott Pruitt raced that old IMSA series. They raced it quite a bit together, co-drivers. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
Yeah. Ask Scott about it. See what he thinks.
Yeah. Next time I see Scott, I'll be sure to mention it. Yes, indeed. Is there anybody that you had ever wanted to do a story on or interview that you never have yet or you never will get to?
Wish you'd feed me these questions ahead of time so I could formulate an answer.
Oh, well, we like to see your wit, though, you see.
Yeah, well, you're seeing it.
Okay.
You talking about racers?
It could be anybody.
Well, let's stick with a racer. I would, if I could go back in time, I would love to talk to the guys who were crazy enough to get in those cars with those skinny wheels and do the early days of the measured mile, Malcolm Campbell, Barney Oldfield, those guys. Yeah, I'd like to talk to them and ask them what are you thinking? Is it worth all that glory, I'd like to talk to Frank Lockhart before he got in the car the second time.
Yeah, amen.
And say, what are you thinking? Because he didn't get it. It wasn't a third time for him.
That's right.
Yeah, so I'd love to talk to those old guys and some of those old IndyCar guys, that race the early Indy 500s, just when it was brick.
Yep.
Love to talk to some of those old guys, but other sports, I don't know.
Are you talking
Ty
about
Cobb?
Yeah.
His grandson. Ty Cobb has a grandson, Charlie Cobb, who grew up here and still lives here. He's 70, I think now, and I've done a few stories on him over the years, and he has always refuted the reputation that Ty Cobb has, and then come to find out a lot of that stuff was, once something gets in the media and it becomes established,
Sure.
It's hard to shake a reputation. So, but he was supposed to be, brilliant, very smart, very bright, intense, and not the guy that he was made out to be in Popular Legend. So I would have loved to have spent some time with him.
But it sold tickets.
Yeah, absolutely, and won a lot of baseball games.
Certainly did.
Yes, and 4,192 hits, I think.
Oh, my gosh. How about Jack Nicklaus? You mentioned him earlier on.
I've been around him quite a bit in interview situations, and he's really good to talk to because he always has an answer, thinks he has the answer, and he's always good. He still is. They play a father-son tournament every December over in Orlando, and it's a field of about 20 or 25 mostly former golfers. They might, a few of them still play on the senior tour. And their sons. They pick a son if they have more than one, and they play a two-man team over there. And Jack's always in it, and I always go over on the first day, and they bring him out after they sign their scorecards. They bring him out, and he'll stand there as long as you want to talk to him, and in a little interview situation. And so I've gotten a lot of mileage out of that over the years. So he's good. He's good. Yeah. Of course, Arnold was great.
Yeah.
Arnold was great. He would sit there and talk to you all day, too. But I don't know if I guess he spent too much time in the jet maybe because his hearing went, and he got difficult to talk to in later years. So, but he was always good.
Yeah, it wasn't the whoosh of the golf balls.
No.
Okay. No. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, that's if there was any game you would have played if you had an opportunity, which one would you have gotten into?
I think I would like to have been, if I could have been anything in this world athletically, I would like to have been a quality starting pitcher. Because you work every fifth day. I like that idea.
Really?
And then you sit around and tell stories, eat sunflower seeds, play golf. Yeah.
You don't have to.
And the girls love you.
Oh, yeah.
When you're a ball player, you're in uniform. Oh, kidding me?
Yeah.
I would have been married 7 times probably if I'd been a starting pitcher.
Well, I got my first race car when I was 15.
Yeah.
55 Chevy dirt tracker, raced around here. The problem was I wasn't very good. And I was kind of stifled by lack of talent and lack of money.
Well,
to compound the problem, my dad was the announcer, so I was the butt of all his dumb jokes.
Yeah.
I thought it would help me get girls, and it didn't.
Yeah.
So I pretty much gave it up after that.
Look at you now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Were you ever involved? I've heard people talk about the old drag racing they used to do at Spruce Creek Fly-In at the old Spruce Creek Airport. Were you ever involved in that or go to those?
Yeah, a couple times. They were outlaw drags. They were not sanctioned. They did have some sanctioned drags that my father was the announcer at, and they used airport runway lights or those big spotlights to light the runway in the dark. It was crazy.
Oh, God.
Nothing out there but desolation. But a bunch of us from high school would run out there every now and then and do drags on like a Sunday afternoon and hope we didn't get caught by the cops.
Oh. What, you're talking 50s and 60s?
Yeah, thanks, pal.
Yeah, right. Well, you said 55.
Okay.
I would like, if I had a time machine, I'd love to go back and watch one of the old beach road races here. I would love to see that. I'm sure it wasn't easy to spectate.
No.
Because you couldn't see the whole thing. And you just look at the absurdity of it, of how close people were to the race traffic. When the cars are going by, I can't believe how long they got away. Sometimes they didn't get away with it.
Yeah.
Chris Economaki.
Yes.
I talked to him. I was doing a story with him, a reminisce story, which he was probably 80 at the time, and he was talking about the first time he came down here. Big Bill hired him to be one of the announcers for the beach road race, and his spot was right here at the north turn, and these bleachers that were out here, and he was on the PA. And he would announce the action for the people here. Yeah. And he said you could almost, if you squinted, you could make out the south turn. You couldn't tell what was going on down there. You saw dirt flying up, and you could kind of see the cars coming off the south turn, coming back at you here at the beach. And then he had let it rip, as they're going through the turn. Hey, it's Curtis Turner. But he said he couldn't see what was going on at the south turn, so he just made stuff up. They're 3 wide coming off A1A, and they're barreling in, and there's Paul Goldsmouth. And he's like, all hell's breaking loose down there. And then they come through here, and they're getting stuck, and they're just mudding through there and getting up. And he said after the race, he was packing his stuff up, and he's going down, and he said there were 2 guys walking next to him as he was going to his car, and he said one of them said to the other, he says, next year, we're going to sit down at the south turn. That's where all the action is.
And by the way, that was a great Chris Economaki.
Everybody has one. It's like John Wayne. Everybody has a Chris Economaki.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, it was a little bit of Keystone Cops, a little bit of circus, a little bit of everything else going down here at that time. But we have to break for another sponsor.
Wow.
Yeah, so here we go.
Can't hide money.
No, sir.
Caution flag is out. Time for a break. We'll be right back with the Legends of Racing radio show. At Beach Boys Embroidery and Tees, it's all about making you happy. Beach Boys Embroidery can customize your athletic golf apparel, caps, hats, badges, buttons, magnets, backpacks, bags, totes, clocks, watches, and of course, T-shirts. Sure, they're at 2033 South Ridgewood Avenue in South Daytona, and they're waiting for you to call now. 386-255-5880. Beach Boys Embroidery and Tees. We're back from where it all began. Racing's original North Turn Beach Bar and Grill. The Legends of Racing radio show continues with your host, Buz McKim.
Yes, we have an enthusiastic crowd here today. Thank you so much for showing up. We do hope we're not only entertaining but educating, too. We have our very special guest here, Ken Willis from the Daytona Beach News Journal. And, since I retired in October, I only wear pants when I absolutely have to, and I don't cut my hair anymore. So when you retire, you might sorry. Sorry about that.
I work out of the house a lot, at night, early morning. That's easier than an office setting.
Yes.
And my uniform is basically boxers and T-shirt, and I won't. Never mind. I won't tell you what my wife says about all that. But she says,
you do have the best gig then, don't you?
On those days,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's very nice.
Yeah. But make my way to the office occasionally, and
Are you ever surprised when you get to the office? Anything sitting there waiting for you that you hadn't planned on?
I tell you what happened this week was what happened after I left, and this invariably happens after you leave. And I get home, and there's like 3 text messages, a couple emails, missed calls, and that was the afternoon. That was Monday. That was the afternoon when the news broke that the France family has apparently talked to Goldman Sachs about kicking the tires on a what's this thing worth, testing the market on maybe selling the whole shooting match. And so then I know that whatever plans I have for the next few hours are off, so I get down into my uniform, take my seat at the desk and go to work. So
Yeah.
So no, that usually is how it works. If something big's going to happen, it's after you've left and called it a day. That's when something big happens. Usually.
Right. So yeah, we've lost a lot of folks lately. James Hilton, did you ever come across any time with
James?
James?
A few things. Yeah, I did several stories on him over the years. The year he tried to get into the 500 at 73, which I think was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
73 years old, and he ran pretty well in the 125 or was it a 150 then? I don't know. It was the qualifying race. The twins.
Right. I think it might have been a
he ran pretty well, missed it by a couple of spots, and then I think he still ran some ARCA races after that. And then the last time I talked to him was in 17 last year. It was the first day they had cars out there at the track during speed weeks, and he was sitting over there in the ARCA garage. So he was always good for a story like that, and a lot of fun to talk to because he was a a walking history book, much like other people we know.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, but he lived in a little trailer out behind the shop. He didn't need creature comforts. He just wanted to be able to work on his race cars and go racing. A very interesting career he had. He was a mechanic. He was originally a plumber and or an electrician or something, making $40 a week. And Rex White, he hired him and was going to give him $50 a week to work on his car back in the 50s. Then he was on the crew when Rex won the championship in 1960. Then James went over to work for Ned Jarrett. And kind of late in life, he took up stock car driving. And in his rookie year in the Cup Series, he finished second in points, which is still the highest finish of any rookie. And he ran 602 Cup races, and exactly 50% of them, 301, he had top 10 finishes. And he always ran secondhand stuff. So when you look at what he accomplished and what he had, he was a remarkable guy. And still at 83 years old, still showing up for every race.
Yeah. Too bad.
Yeah. Yep. And then we had our old buddy Russ Truelove. You know, we have a sandwich named after him here. And he was another interesting cat. His brother-in-law was Burt Parks. Did you know that?
The Miss America guy.
That's right.
Oh, no.
Yeah. The old Burt Parks was on the beach here in 1956 when Russ flipped and made the centerfold of Life magazine. And he said, I don't know if you believe in numerology, but he said, I always ran number 26. And I filed my entry a little bit too late. And so they put a 2 in front of my 26. So my number that day was 226. And he said the wreck happened on February 26th. How about that?
Now you know the rest of the story.
Yeah, I do.
As Paul Harvey used to say. Burt Parks. I hadn't heard that name in years.
Yeah. Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think the newspaper said Burt Parks watches his brother-in-law defy death on the sands of Daytona Beach.
That's funny.
You have to kind of punch it up a little bit,
Yeah, no
right?
kidding.
Yeah,
No
yeah.
kidding.
Now, I bet you could have been a great race promoter in another life.
Not in those days. They had to get. Remember, you hear the stories. They had to get up on. They go through the Carolinas on them old backwoods highways, and they'd crawl up on the barns and put a sign on it, and they'd nail posters to the utility poles on downtown streets. And I don't. That's a lot of climbing and getting dirty and all that. I was not cut out for. Not cut out for that. I could have been the idea guy.
Oh, yeah.
I would have been a good idea guy.
Okay.
I got a good idea. Why don't you crawl on that barn and I'll pick you up in a half hour. I'm going for lunch. That would have been my idea.
Yeah, you mentioned our old buddy Jim Hunter a while back. Jim did just about everything in NASCAR you can imagine. And he was my boss for a while at NASCAR.
Oh, but
and did you ever learn anything from Jim Hunter?
Yes, of course.
I mean,
none of the good stuff I could do anything with. But
that's what I figured.
Absolutely. He was always a lot of fun to talk to, full of personality. And you knew, and he wasn't going to tell you. One thing about him, he could talk to you forever, and you feel like he was telling you, loading you up with information, but he would never tell you anything he wasn't supposed to tell you. So he kept a lot of that stuff pretty close to the vest.
Yep.
And he was a good soldier, but a lot of fun to be around at the same time. So.
Yeah, anytime they needed any kind of credibility in NASCAR, they get a hold of Hunter. He was the president of Darlington Raceway when Dale Earnhardt passed away, and of course there was a big controversy down here after that, so they went ahead and drafted him back into NASCAR from ISC to kind of quell the rough seas that had popped up around the Earnhardt investigation, and he was the steady hand, and I think the sport could use one today, just like him.
Yeah, well, it's gotten there's just too many. I think it's a little too fragmented on the marketing side. You got too many, and it's not their fault because you got too many tentacles out there. All the digital stuff, all the online stuff, all the all the broadcast stuff. There's too many different legs on the stool these days.
Right.
So you got to cover all that, and so there's no one real go-to guy.
Yep.
And they haven't really had one really since him. I don't think. Maybe I'm overlooking somebody, but yeah. But I don't think you could have one go-to guy anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, it is kind of big nowadays, isn't it? Yeah. They're
From a marketing standpoint and a media standpoint, it's kind of out of control. But there's nobody's fault.
right. Yeah.
Look around.
Yeah, really. Yeah, talking about losing folks, we just lost Maynard Troyer yesterday. A great modified driver, great car builder, and I didn't mention the first name clearly enough, and Ken thought I said Vern Troyer, the little mini me guy from the.
And I'm thinking there's another Troyer out there somewhere that needs to look both ways before he crosses the street in the coming days, because if they go in threes,
that's right.
Head on a swivel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So now. What would you do today or tomorrow if you became president of NASCAR to fix it?
Oh, that's a good question. If you had complete autonomy, could
Absolutely.
do anything? Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, shorten the season, run some on weeknights, add a couple of dirt races, have 2 or 3 road courses, 2 or 3 dirt races, and run February through August.
Oh, hey, what do you think about that, folks?
Yeah.
It's pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
I think that
when
might
football
work.
season rolls around,
Yeah, there you go.
So if you got to run 2 races a week, run 2 races a week, and one on a weeknight where you're going to get more TV viewers, and don't try to compete with football, and maybe toy around with timed events like they do in sports car and F1, maybe a 2-hour race.
Yep.
Instead of certain, it's going to be a culture shock to a lot of people, and a lot of people hate it.
Yep.
But look at the last 20 years. There's been something every few years that everybody hated.
Yeah.
So what's one more? What's
That's right.
what I've always been stunned by. I just thinking when I said that reminded me. Everybody's saying, all right, what are the issues, and you talk to a lot of people every now and then. Half of them are lying when they say, I'm not a fan anymore. And then you go to their house on Sunday and they're sitting there watching it. Because it ain't like, how it is. It ain't like it used to be. Everybody always says that about everything.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, they're still watching most of those. But I was always surprised. And I got a couple of friends who are kind of level-headed, calm, normal people. Right. I really do.
Yeah.
Trust me, I do.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
and
darn. Can I check with your wife on that?
And both of them were pissed when Toyota came into NASCAR.
Really?
Then I started asking around, and it really stunned me just how much that angered a lot of people.
Wow.
And I understand why. I'm not saying they shouldn't be upset with it, but I always underestimated, and I think a lot of people underestimate just how many people that irritated. Getting rid of Rockingham was horrible for us.
Right.
North Wilkesboro's gone. Trying to force Fontana on us. Trying to see who could build the most 1.5-mile tracks. All that just was enough to irritate you. Car of tomorrow, all this, that, and the other. But I tell you, that the Toyota thing is what really, I think, that was the one specific moment that irritated a lot of people, and I was always surprised. And not just because I drove a Tundra at the time, but it always surprised me just how upset that made a lot of people.
Yeah, well, I think the old-time fans, long-term fans, felt it was an American sport.
Right.
And you don't want any of these foreigners coming in here and messing things up.
Well, they're going to love it when Kia comes along, aren't they?
Hey, now you're talking. At least Yugo's not around anymore, right?
No, that'd be a hell of a series, though, because you never know when that thing's just going to fall apart. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard rumblings that Mercedes, Volkswagen, almost anything could come in if they chose to. Yeah. But, Toyota came in, the first couple of years was a little rough, but, boy, they did their homework, and they came out with both barrels blasted.
Oh, yeah, they've got quite a lot of depth in the engineering department there. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. Absolutely for sure. Yeah, so this has been an absolute joy, and we've had a good old time here, and this is the end of part 1. If you want to really know what you're going to have to check in next week for part 2. We're just getting them started here, and now we have to feed them. Right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay.
You have to.
Yeah, we have to. Absolutely. So anyway, well, this is the end of episode 1. Yeah, there we go. Thank you very much, folks, and make sure you tune in next week for more scintillating talk.
And tip your bartenders and waitresses.
Absolutely. Try the veal.
The Legends of Racing radio show originates live from the very spot where beach racing began, Racing's North Turn Beach Bar and Grill. Join us next time for the Legends of Racing radio show with Buz McKim.
No, we're going to...
I knew
we're going to do another one today
I thought it was
because
the water.
we'll be gone
I thought it
next
was the
week,
water.
but then we'll be here every week.
Oh, it was bad.
Okay?
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Mr. Mike? Oh, sure, okay. All right. What can I do for you, buddy?